go on. I don't know if you want to pick a question. Yeah. It does appear that everybody else can hear me, so slightly better. Thanks, Smuggler. Thanks, Bugs Peter. Okay. Right. So we'll start with the top one. We'll take them in order if that's okay, Go. First question from Crypto Junkie. Hundreds of millions of Nahmii tokens will be bridged to Nahmii version 2. Is there any plan to increase the liquidity for it to serve enough transactions? So I think when we talk about what we're increasing the liquidity of here, I'm assuming that's a question about Nephi, right? So, Akoa, how are we going to increase liquidity on Nephi if we suddenly have lots and lots of Nahmii tokens there?
Well, we're not a casino, we're not a house, so we're not going to increase liquidity by just creating pools ourselves, right? We're going to keep on incentivizing people to provide liquidity to the platform, and we have different strategies that will be applied to get there. I think that is the simplest possible way to answer it. I don't know if you want to elaborate in more, giving more details.
So we're throwing a lot at the incentive program for Nephi at the moment. So obviously there's 100 million Nahmii tokens every month being used for incentives and a good chunk of Nephi tokens as well. So 4 pools are incentivized with Nahmii tokens and 11 pools are incentivized with Nephi tokens. So we're already throwing a significant amount of resources at liquidity providers on Nephi. And let's be honest, I think the bridge address on Nahmii 1 currently has about 650 million Nahmii tokens sat in there. So when that bridge closes and those tokens are withdrawn and put into Nahmii 2, it will give the TVL of Nahmii 2 a little bump. I think more importantly, though, is the fact that starting next month, every single month we will be adding another billion Nahmii tokens into Nahmii 2. The airdrops will take place on Nahmii 2. So for Nephi, there'll be more tokens available for people to trade with. Some people will choose to put those tokens into liquidity pools. And we have products in development that will make it easier for people to actually stake their tokens. So yeah, a couple of options there. So there is a question from Renua who asks a very similar question. When Nahmii staking, Kobo, I'll let you tackle that one. When staking?
Well, so we're currently working, and then again, let me take a pause. We are aware that the community has been very or some community members have been very successful at spoofing what is going on behind the scenes and what we're building and what we're working on. We will be a bit more careful moving on. So I can tell you though that we are working on different mechanisms to stake the Nahmii. So that is coming, that is on its way. But when, we are not going to give an exact ETA, as we have seen that historically we have ended up saying soon. But most importantly, we have a bunch of products being built. Those are getting ready to be deployed. And then on the next batch of products, we will focus on that staking. Which again, as I said, it's going to be several. It will end up being in several flavors and shapes and forms.
Okay, next one. Are there any plans to increase liquidity on Uniswap for those in states where Gate is not available? And this is from CryptoZ, who says prefers to have his assets on Nahmii, but the 7-day withdrawal period means he feels more comfortable splitting assets between Nahmii and other layers like layer 1. So I think I'll start with that one. We obviously provided liquidity incentives on Uniswap previously, and we've had them on Uniswap v2 and Uniswap v3. Obviously, Uniswap v2 was all on one pool. Uniswap v3 was split across 4. And in some ways, this is difficult because we had a theory that we tested out. We provided liquidity, incentives, some liquidity was added to the pools, but over time, it wasn't necessarily providing value for money for us. So at the all-time high of the token price at 2.4 cents, we were putting 100 million Nahmii tokens in to what was effectively a competitor product to Nephi. So the community asked us the question, well, why don't we incentivize Nephi more heavily? Why don't we put more tokens up there? Which is what we did. And we've seen a proportional increase in the Nephi TVL in terms of number of tokens. Obviously, TVL can be a little bit misleading. If people put a certain amount of tokens in and then the price of those tokens drops by half, your TVL has gone down by half, but nobody's actually withdrawn from your network. So the TVL of Nahmii 2 very much depends, as the TVL of Nahmii 1 does, on what the token price is. In terms of Uniswap, I can see why there's a value to having a high liquidity on Uniswap, but it tends to only really benefit very large holders. So Uniswap's expensive to use. It makes sense to pay the Uniswap price if you're swapping large amounts, but we want Nephi to be where we concentrate our incentives. So unless the data suggests otherwise, we will continue to incentivize Nephi. There may be other alternative platforms that are available for us to incentivize, and I don't want to say any more than that. But we've talked about building an ecosystem of products, a toolkit for Skunk Down. And as far as we're concerned, we want Nephi to be at the center of that, and that means our incentives going there. Second question, Kobo, we'll leave this one to you. What are the Nahmii team goals for the sandbox CBDC environment? Is it to show how fast and final transactions are? Is it to showcase how easy it is to use crypto on Nahmii via some simple UI that we built as part of it? So there are limits to what we can say about this, but Kobo, I'll leave that one to you.
Yeah, the goals for the sandbox for the CBDC project, the sandbox CBDC project, is to ultimately help a partner to comprehend how they can put into practice or how they can build a solution for the large hypothesis that they have and different use cases. It is, of course, the objective or the goal is also to experiment, as it goes in the name of the project. So it's an experiment. It's experimental. It is on its experimental phase, and of course, at the same time, we just want to educate them on what best practices are. We also want to learn more about how central banks think, feel about CBDCs and potential use cases. And of course, ultimately as well, just the Nahmii technology concept is very much there as well. So the goals are at several levels, right? They come in different ways. Learning, helping them, understanding better how governments feel about CBDCs and what the short-term, mid-term, long-term objectives are. Keep in mind that is going to have a phenomenal impact on how the financial industry is going to be reshaped. It's going to have as well a very profound impact on how money is going to be literally minted and burned and managed. And quite frankly, it's giving us a phenomenal, unique opportunity to learn a lot about it. Because while most players, again, tend to be focused on short-term objectives, the moment that you get to listen to and understand how national banks feel about CBDCs, then you can start playing, mid-term strategies with regards to, for instance, okay, how can I then be well positioned for when this happens, right? So it's giving you very much an unfair advantage. So again, the objectives are many.
I think there's a huge number of questions that Dennis has put on the next one on the list. And he said that we can cherry pick between them because I think there's about 10. So some of them have already been covered. Can we elaborate on what Norges Bank is planning to do? Well, they want to test. They want to test technology behind blockchain. They want to test the different things that you can do with blockchain technology that's difficult to do with other things. So they have questions about the whole end-to-end process, from minting and burning on the one hand, the basic transfers, all the way through to security, KYC, AML, how things will interact with how any CBDC system would interact with traditional finance and other banks, their back-end systems, all that good stuff, payments, processing. There's a huge number of questions that they are considering. And one of the jobs that we're helping them with is to understand what the technical and practical considerations are to roll something like this out at scale. One of the questions is, will they build use cases and ask people to participate? I very much expect that will happen. There are obviously limits on what we can say, but in terms of the use cases, yep, they want to involve as many banks as they can in Norway, possibly beyond, and they will have user groups who are asked to test certain things in certain ways. I know that's quite vague. It's vague because we have to be a little bit vague at this stage. Until Norges Bank publish certain pieces of information, we can't talk about them. So will, for example, someone be able to buy a coffee in a cafe using an electronic version of a krona? Well, yeah, that's the ultimate goal. If they decide to go for a CBDC and they've never actually said, either to us or publicly, that they've made that decision, this is an experimental process that will run until next summer, as they say in all the documentation. So they will perform the tests, they will gather the data that they need to make their mind up, and then they will, if they choose to do it, they will choose a platform and a team to build that. Obviously, from our point of view, we'd very much like that to be us, and we'd like to think that the work we're doing is going well and we're in a good position, but there's plenty more to be done between now and next summer. In terms of questions about the network topology, how it all connects together, that's probably a bit too detailed for us to go into on this call. I'll be honest, there are certain things, like I said, that we can't talk about. That might be one of them until Norges Bank publish their own articles and blog posts and things like that. In terms of expecting transaction fees during the test phase, again, that depends on Norges Bank. Some of the things that they've been talking about previously are testing on a zero fee network, testing with custom fees. These are all things that we can help them to investigate. And in terms of being open source from the summer, I don't think this is privileged information, but basically what Norges Bank are looking for is a system that will stick to the values of open source. Whether the entire system needs to be open source, I'm not sure. If it does need to be open source, there are parts of the protocol that we can open source, and we've said that we will be happy to do that in future. Whether we would open source all of Nahmii's protocol is a very different question that we don't have a definitive answer on at the moment. The last question from Dennis, and I've answered almost all of them, I think. Is there any interest or involvement from other central banks on this activity? Let's put it this way. Akobo has been contacted by a lot more people on LinkedIn over the last few weeks than previously. Many of those people are in the financial services industry. Many of them work for banks. We are having interesting conversations with at least 2 CBDC projects that aren't Norges Bank. So Norway is, in terms of population, obviously a relatively small country. I think there's about 5.5 million people there. But Norges Bank and Norway obviously are responsible for one of the biggest sovereign wealth funds in the world, if not the biggest sovereign wealth fund in the world. I think it has something crazy like $1.1 trillion worth of assets. So Norway is an excellent place to start when you think about CBDCs. They have almost eliminated cash. They're an almost entirely cashless society, and digital payments are accepted everywhere. So the next stage of digital payments using blockchain technology, if you think about where it might happen next, Norway would be an excellent place to start. I know Kobo's had to pause for 2 seconds, so I'll take on the next one, because I think the next question from Mr. K is one that I was discussing with him on the Nephi Discord channel and he's very kindly added it in here. Can the team please explain more about the deflationary properties of the Nephi token going forwards? Specifically, how significant the 1/6 fees burning could be in terms of supply reduction and token attractiveness. So this is a really complicated topic because there are different factors that pull in opposite directions. So for those of you that haven't read the blog post, one of the use cases for the Nephi token is that what we will do with fees on Nephi, LP fees, is we will take 1/6 of that amount, use it to buy back Nephi tokens on the Nephi exchange, and then those tokens will be burned. So once this is up and running, the Nephi token will be deflationary because over time the supply is obviously fixed, but some of those tokens are being burned. So the initial mint has already taken place. Some of those tokens will be burned every month or at whatever periodic interval we choose, and that means that the token supply will go down over time. Now, how fast will the token supply go down, and what will it mean for the token attractiveness, which is a very nice way of Mr. K saying, what will it mean for the price? Well, it depends on two things. It depends on how much transaction volume goes through Nephi. So that determines the pot of money effectively that we have to buy back tokens with. And it depends on the Nephi price, the Nephi token price. So if we have a lot of tokens going through the platform and the Nephi token is cheap, we can buy back and burn a lot of those tokens. But obviously, the more tokens that you burn, the smaller the supply becomes. And there are things that you can do that help restrict circulating supply. Some of those things burn tokens, like a buyback mechanism that we're talking about here. Some other things will just remove tokens from circulation or easy circulation. So staking, liquidity provision, things like that. There are also things that we're looking into like protocol owned liquidity, where that will permanently move certain tokens out of our ability to withdraw them, but they will be available for buying and selling. So the token supply and how it impacts the token price, the relationship isn't as simple as the fewer the tokens, the higher the price, but it is a factor. So the Nephi token will become deflationary once this is up and running, and you would expect that as there are fewer tokens for the same value, each token will be worth more. It doesn't always work that way, but that's the principle. And as the platform becomes more successful over time, as the more transactions go through and the transaction volume goes up and fees go up, that will increase the amount of tokens we have to buy back funds with, but it doesn't necessarily mean the price won't go up at the same time and we'll have fewer tokens per month to burn. So it's complicated, and I think it's one of those things where maybe I might write a Medium post in the future about the push and pull. But effectively, the two things that you have working against each other, on the one hand, burning tokens normally makes the price go up, but on the other hand, as the price goes up, you can buy fewer of the same token to burn. So different factors pulling and pushing in different directions, but the economics of it are really interesting. Next one from Ed Rulig. Can you please elaborate on this? Any Nephi token holder will be able to call a function to convert accrued funds into Nephi tokens, which will then be burned. So, yep, this is something that we can do in a way that is trustless. So once these contracts are up and running properly, what will happen is the funds going to this pot, this 1/6 pot, will sit on a smart contract, and there'll be a function that you can call on that smart contract, and that function will, and anybody can do this who holds Nephi tokens. They can basically press the big red button. When they press that button, the smart contract will execute a transaction on Nephi to buy Nephi tokens and then burn them. So ideally, this becomes a trustless process, and we can do that with smart contracts. So hopefully that answers that question. Mr. K is next on the list again. Some really good questions from him today, so thank you. To what extent does the team expect that Kiwi will disrupt the NFT marketplace? It should, in theory, be hugely disruptive, but I'm interested to know what steps are being taken to make it happen in practice. That is an excellent question. It's a very big question as well. So, you're back. Go. I don't know if you answered that one.
Yeah, sure, sure. So I think that Kiwi is definitely going to present an interesting and powerful alternative to what is out there. The approach that we're going to take is going to be, or the strategy that we're going to follow is going to be, again, multi-tiered. In one end, of course, we will be eating our own dog food as we historically have done. We believe that, of course, it will help us to bootstrap our own ecosystem internally around NFTs, and we have some pretty good solid ideas about that. Second, we will also be, and we are also doing it, discussing and speaking and hopefully bringing in commercial solutions on top of the NFT marketplace. So we think that the first wave that we have experienced all in 2021 by seeing NFTs becoming popular in the form of buying, selling, and just speculating with JPEGs is not only sustainable, but it's not the way to go. And we're currently experimenting also internally with a fair amount of different approaches in terms of what NFTs can look like. So you, of course, think that it could be disruptive because it's cheap, fast, instant, and all that, which is fine. It's absolutely true. Might not become that large amongst, at least initially, amongst crypto users. And again, this is not just being negative, it's just being realistic. Pay attention to where the NFTs live. Pay attention as well that there are other networks as well that offer cheaper NFT platforms than Ethereum mainnet, but still people gravitate towards Ethereum mainnet, mostly because it is the most secure platform out there. And also if you're going to spend $1 million on an NFT, you will gravitate towards having that NFT in the safest place, or most secure place. But the moment that you target other use cases, commercial use cases, then is where our platform is going to really kick some ass, right? So we have no doubt that is going to be very successful, but maybe the success that we see it happening, it might be slightly different to what most might be thinking, right? So we do not expect to see, CryptoPunks being sold for $1 million on Kiwi. That's not what I think we're going to be attracting. No, we're going to be attracting something very different, but at the same time, way more powerful.
Yeah, well, I think it's worth mentioning as well that every decision we make as a company is designed around the same basic principle, which is the products that we build, the ecosystem that we're trying to create, and the partners that we try and bring on board, particularly institutional partners, they're all designed around transaction volume. So NEI token holders, of which the company obviously is a major one, make money when there are transactions on the network. That's the principal use case. So on that basis, all the products that we build, everything we do is all designed around trying to drive transactions through the protocol. And for Kiwi and for our NFT strategy, because Nahmii can do transactions in a way that other networks can't, we can handle lower volume, lower price transactions for a lower fee. We can do it faster. We can do it instantly. We can do it with low latency. There are different use cases that you can bring to life using Nahmii that you can't on other platforms. So there are interesting gaming use cases. There are interesting gaming as in gambling type use cases. There are interesting use cases in trading and finance. There are things where if you are interested in latency and that's your key driver, or you're interested in cost, or you're interested in instant finality, there are advantages to being a customer of Nahmii or a product on Nahmii that you won't find elsewhere. So what we want when we look for use cases, partners, products, is always driven by the same basic thesis. Where can we find use cases and products that take advantage of our unique selling points and drive transactions through the protocol? So yeah, I think one final point, and Kobo's hinted at it, I'll hint at it again. some of our own internal projects are designed to make use of the whole Skunk DAO ecosystem. So that's everything from DeFi, NFTs, gaming, all wrapped up in one product. And I'm thinking of one in particular, but there are others that will follow. So we're looking forward to showing that one.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and I think that is a very important point, John, which is I think that most crypto users tend to think on a per product basis. They don't really, I mean, because the concept of a wider interconnected platform doesn't really exist. At least I haven't seen it myself. And that is, of course, something that will set us apart in many aspects.
So the next is an interesting one. Go. You once said that Nahmii previously fell into a position of doing free consulting work on blockchain. Following the Nogus Bank news, do we envisage a similar situation arising but with central banks? And he says, I guess Nahmii would love to have a meeting with every central bank, yet also would want to avoid giving away too much free consulting.
Right. So I'll say that I don't want to have a meeting with every central bank, especially not the Chinese central bank. But I'll say as well that, yeah, I have mentioned before that we end up doing free consultancy. Now, let me elaborate that quote. So business development never sleeps. And business development, most of it is done pro bono, right? So you meet with people, with companies, you try to understand what they're after, see how your product can fit their needs, etc, etc. Eventually, you have a conversion rate, right, of whatever percentage. What has happened, though, with us, what has happened to us, especially this last 4 years, is that the concept of blockchain is a very new concept. And companies, although some might have had genuine interest in doing business with us, some of those companies, though, were more interested in knowing, learning about blockchain. And that is why I mentioned that that we did free consultancy in quotes, right? Because again, maybe they didn't have the real intent. Clearly, some of them did not have the clear intent of doing any business. Some other ones might have had clear intent, and then when you establish those conversations and dialogues, and the Q&A happened, then they develop their knowledge, and then eventually they realize, okay, well, maybe this is not for me. So that is what I meant by free consultancy. So it was just more of a made up sentence than anything else, right? But yeah, of course, that we would love to speak with many other central banks, and not only central banks, but also financial institutions, fintech companies, and many other ones.
Yeah, the project with Nogus Bank has opened up a number of doors that previously were a little bit harder for us to get through. And maybe one of the biggest changes based on the Nogus Bank project is that institutions where we were talking to them previously, but we were almost approaching them, have actually started proactively approaching us. And let's be clear, the work we're doing with Nogus Bank is paid. We're being paid for the technology we're building for them. We're being paid for the consultancy work that we do or any hours spent with them. And the project with Nogus Bank will go on as long as it needs to, and as long as they want us to keep working with them. So yeah, we will always have to do a degree of that kind of pre-sale type work where you obviously you meet people, you explain what you can offer, you have a conversion rate that's never 100%. So sometimes you do provide quote unquote free consultancy, but there's an element of free consultancy in business development. And the whole point of business development is to get to the point where people are paying for your services or building products on your network, and that it's profitable for you in that way. So we're comfortable with the amount of work that we do like that. In the past, there have been companies that wanted to deal with us or another blockchain company just to say that they were tech focused, they were on the cutting edge of technology, they were doing something trendy. And exactly the same thing happened with IoT, AI, augmented reality. You name it, any new industry will always have some people that just want to put that name next to their brand, even if they have no real interest in building a product, actually using that technology. So in our case, we have become better over time at learning which opportunities are the ones that we should invest more of our time and effort into, and which ones are people who are just trying to either have a free blockchain lesson from us or say they're doing something on blockchain even if they're not. And I think with August Bank, we found a partner who are really genuinely interested in the technology and some of the more advanced use cases that we are investigating for them. They are at the cutting edge of what you could do with CBDC. So yeah, it's important for us to never stop providing a degree of free quote unquote consultancy, but there's definitely an art form to making sure that you don't waste time on opportunities that will never turn into something real. Nice and easy one for you, Kobo, from GVAR number 1. Can we expect some marketing push to follow the launch of all the cool products running on the Nahmii network?
Well, I think we have been doing pretty well these last few weeks, maybe a couple of months. We have attended several crypto gatherings. We have given some talks. We have ramped up as well our productivity around blog posts. We have had some third parties talking about us as well. Now, I'm not sure about a push would be the right verb that I would go for. I think that what we want to do is just to keep the cadence going and have a continuity. That is probably what I would go for instead, or what I would say. But yeah, I mean, we are. I think that we're on the right path. We have done pretty well this last couple of months. The new hires have had a very positive impact. It is true that we have a bunch of products coming up, and the idea is just to keep the comms open, spend more time as well building up the community. We have been playing this last 24, 48 hours with some different DAO tooling. We see that we will be having some pretty good tools at our disposal to engage closer with you as well. So again, it's going to be a process. It's not going to be just a push. No, it's going to be a process that we have initiated, and we want to keep it going for as long as possible.
That's a sound answer. So let's see. We're getting towards the end of the questions. There's 2 more, I think. Sorry, 3 more. So one from Smuggler. He says, regarding several previous attacks on crypto bridges from other L1 to L2s, or L1s and L2s, does Nahmii implement any countermeasures in order to ensure no exploit can happen? And as we gain traction, many funds will hopefully flow. How will users feel protected? So there are a few different things to say about this. Bridges are important, but they always make me naturally cautious from a technology perspective. Because generally speaking, the people that are engineering these bridges know a lot about one side of the bridge, but not so much about the other network side. And maybe sometimes that's an opportunity for mistakes to be made and exploits to be found. I think we know that the industry as a whole is still relatively immature, and maybe the standards that people are building their software to don't necessarily live up to the expectations of the community, especially when we're talking about bridges and protocols that have literally billions of dollars of value locked up inside them. So crypto is maturing. It's an adolescent in terms of the industry age, and when you go through adolescence, there are growing pains. So in terms of what we do as a company, we have a background in building software for a long period of time that's aimed at people that have worked in oil and gas, people that have worked in finance, products that have held large amounts of value, products that have been battle tested with, in some cases, 50 million users. Our job is to try and replicate that as best as we can. So in terms of when we develop software, we do it to best practices in terms of how we test, in terms of how we code. We have our own internal review processes before anything goes live. Certain parts of our systems have been externally audited. It's impossible to say with a absolutely cast iron guarantee that there are no issues, no bugs, nothing like that in your system. But what you can do instead is by hiring the right people, by working to the right standards, by working in the right way with the right processes and best practices, you can minimize that risk as much as you can, as much as possible. So our bridges, we have one currently, an ERC20 bridge. That bridge was extensively tested. I know some people in the community were a little disappointed that it took us a while to get the withdrawal aspect up and running. But one of the main reasons why we took that amount of time to build the withdrawal side of it is because we didn't want to risk or take risks with what is a fundamental part of our infrastructure. So Nahmii has been around in version 1 and version 2 forms now for almost 4 years. During that time, we've had no security exploits. It doesn't mean that it's impossible that we'll have problems in the future, but we haven't had any to date. And I'd like to think that reflects the standards that we try to work to as a company. So hopefully that answer is sufficient, although I'm sure there'll be more questions on the security side of it.
I
Another
will
question.
I
Another
will add
question from Smuggler.
something else as well quickly. No, it's fine. I just want to add as well with regards to this point that in many aspects as well we have already been working on making sure that people is as protected as possible. So one of the things we have been very clear about is that we don't want the typical Ponzi scamming rug pull products on Nahmii. Keep in mind, I mean, and again, and there are some other layer twos that are specialized on having those, which massively contribute to their TVLs. Keep in mind as well that the fact that now we're working with a very reputable financial institution, and we intend to keep on working with those, and hopefully a lot more of those. We will be subject to even more, due diligence by those guys. So we have to absolutely avoid as much as possible any potential incidents. But there are, I mean, when we talk about incidents, the incidents can happen at multiple levels, right? So the moment that you run the infrastructure, it's not only about the infrastructure, the protocol itself. It's also, for instance, the ancillary services, as John was indicating about the bridges in and out. And it's also about, for instance, the products running on top of it. So it's a multi-level issue that you need to keep in mind. And we will not have control over it all, right? Because the day that Nahmii is fully open and everybody can deploy whatever, then we will be losing some level of control. But of course, by the time we make it to that point, we will have other remedies in place. And historically as well, keep in mind that I know that John said that we have a bridge, but we have two, because we also have the one in Nahmii 1, which has been operational for over 3.5 years and has held hundreds of millions of dollars. So I would like to think that we should be okay, but ultimately it comes down to how detailed and high quality our work is.
Good stuff. The next question should be quite quick. So it's another one from Smuggler. He says, the 120 billion Nahmii distribution, so these are the monthly airdrops. He says 1 billion a month to HBT holders, and that's not actually true. It's 500 million a month that goes to HBT holders. He says it's fixed, right? Question mark. Is it possible for the team to change the rules later? So, as it stands today, the process by which we run the airdrop is trusted. So, in theory, if I fell down the stairs and had a bang on my head and decided to do something stupid, we could change those values because it's a trusted process. However, I would say that we've always been clear about this. The allocation to HBT holders is fixed. It's fixed at 50%, so 500 million tokens a month. And we've run, I think, 43 airdrops now over 3.5 years, where we've paid out exactly that amount. We have no intention of changing it. We've written it in every version of the white paper. We've been extremely clear from the outset that that is what goes to HBT token holders, and we do not plan to change it. In the future, we have options to make this process more automated, and we talked about that before with the potential claiming mechanism. That's something we are investigating, but it comes later after we have decommissioned Nahmii 1. But if you're a HBT holder or you're looking to purchase HBT tokens after the swap is completed, I will say, as far as I'm concerned, as far as everyone in the company is concerned, that that is written in stone and it will never change. Another question from Bucks Beta. Currently, there are 26 billion Nahmii tokens that are sat in the client fund. Client fund is the deposit contract for Nahmii 1, for those of you who don't know that. What will happen with these tokens and how easy will it be to withdraw them once Huobi Core is decommissioned? I know we still have a few more days left for people to transfer to the bridge wallet, but a lot of tokens there could be out of circulation. So a couple of things. The client fund wallet holds 26 billion Nahmii tokens, and a significant portion of those will belong to the company. We will probably take those tokens out of Nahmii 1 by the withdrawal method, where we will settle and withdraw, or we might do a separate company bridge. But that's for us to manage. But basically, I'm not expecting that after we have taken all the company funds out as well, there certainly won't be 26 billion Nahmii left in there. But there will be, I'd expect, at least a few billion Nahmii, because we know that there are people that haven't even heard of the airdrops. They don't know anything about Nahmii 1. They maybe bought HBT tokens at ICO and have forgotten about them. They might have lost the private keys. There are lots of different reasons. So what will happen to those tokens? Well, some of them will be sat there forever because the people who own those tokens might never try to withdraw them. They might not put them across the bridge. So let's say we've decommissioned Nahmii 1 and we've turned off Huobi Core. How can you get your tokens out if you suddenly find your private keys, or you realize the Nahmii token goes up in value, you suddenly realize that you have some, and you think, how can I get them out of Huobi Core? Well, the answer for Nahmii 1 is that you won't use Huobi Core when it's been turned off. You can start, finalize, and complete a withdrawal from Nahmii 1 entirely on-chain. You don't need Huobi Core to do it. So if Huobi Core is turned off, it's more technically demanding to take your tokens out of the client fund, but it's not impossible. The one thing that you need is the payload for the transaction, the thing you need to put in the withdrawal transaction itself. So when we turn Huobi Core off and decommission Nahmii 1, we will publish the payloads for every wallet that still has a balance on Nahmii 1. So what that means is anybody who has funds inside of Nahmii 1 can always use that payload, which will be on a public GitHub repo, to take their tokens out. And that will be true today, tomorrow, in a year, in 10 years, for as long as Ethereum is available. Those smart contracts will be there. So hopefully that answers Bucks Beta's question. Akobo, I'll let you take the next question, which is an interesting one from Dragon. Is Tokir an advisor? He seems such a shady guy. Oh, wonderful. Kobo, that one's for you.
No, Tokir is not an advisor, and we speak with him regularly. Can you guys hear me, by the way? I think that my headphone just died.
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, one of them died only. No, so we speak with him, and there are several projects that are being discussed. But no, he's not an advisor. So we work closely with him and have several discussions. In terms of shady guy, I don't know how to take that. I don't know what part of his persona might be giving that impression to whoever. But my impression of him is that he's a crypto guy. He likes many aspects of crypto. He's quite legit. That's the impression I've got. But no, he's an advisor. But yeah, we discuss several projects rather often, and we work relatively closely. That is really it.
Okay, so last one on the list, I think. Last one. I wonder if you have anything more detailed to tell us about the upcoming HBT token swap, problems being faced or to be confirmed as the new token was thought of. So we are, as of the stand-ups today, on track for distributing those tokens by the end of the month, the new HBT token. We will tell you the name of the new token when we put the contract on mainnet. But the only thing that might slow us down, I don't know if everyone's aware of this, there have been some problems with Ropsten, which we use as our main test network, where they basically hit the point where they would turn off, they would move across to the new beacon chain on Ropsten, but they hit it much earlier than they were expecting, and Ropsten has been broken basically for 24 hours. So we are testing those contracts out on different Ethereum testnets, but everything was set up for Ropsten. So worst case scenario, we set the end of the month. Worst case scenario, it might slip by a day or two. So now we have another question from Dragon. But basically, we are on track as of this morning, as long as the Ropsten delay doesn't impact us too much, which I don't think will be a big delay either way. We're looking at early next week, so just before the end of the month. So we are not going to spend too long on Tokyo, I'll be honest. But Dragon says, it's a quote, "We are managing multi-billions a day, and yet I just created my company. Nahmii is implicated with this and this and this. I don't understand how you can stand next to that guy. It destroys your brand image." Well, Agobo, it's up to you if you want to take that one, or I can. It's not really a question. So,
I mean, I don't know that exact sentence where it's taken from, but thank you, Dragon, for the input. I know what we're working on. I know what we're doing, and we have spent time speaking with many people. We know people in different levels, in different places. We're pretty careful the way we spend our time and how we look after our brand and who we do business with. We have been in this industry, I don't know, close to 5 years now. I'm going to touch wood. We haven't had any issues. We haven't been implicated in any of those dodgy problems that happens very often in crypto, and we intended to keep it that way. Kind of weird here was an interview with Jacobo on Gains Associates if he has no ties to Nahmii. Just make 2 cents. So Takir, as far as I know, is an advisor of Gains Associates. And as indicated, we have several discussions going on about different things that can be done. So I don't see that as weird, but fair enough. Point taken.
I don't think there's much more we can say about that. Tokyo doesn't work for us. We have opportunities to potentially work with him on certain projects. He's not an advisor. He's not a member of the team. Not everybody we speak to on interviews will be an advisor or a member of the team. But yeah, particularly in the industry that we're in, when we said about, or I said earlier on about it being quite a young industry, you will meet a lot of people that are interesting, shall we say. So in terms of how we work, we treat people as individuals. We check them on the merits. We're not naive. We've been building products and dealing with software for a long time. So yeah, people like Tokyo. So far, our relationship with him has been positive. He doesn't work for the team, but we might do some projects with him in the future. It's to be seen. So yeah, nice thing to finish us off in terms of the questions. Dennis says, to add something positive, I'd like to compliment Venetia on a roll in the last few weeks. I'm very pleased to see that comment from the community because we've said exactly the same thing internally. We think Venetia's doing a great job, and between Venetia and Boris, it seems like we're able to get a lot more value out of our comms. Our community seem to be happy, and we're really trying to improve the regularity with which we share news and updates with you. And obviously, Venetia's been a big part of that. So absolutely agree with that comment from Dennis. We're at the stage now where we've gone through all the questions. We've got 5 minutes left for any other questions if people want to stick their hand up. I'm I'm definitely not a Discord wizard in the same way that Boris is, but I will try and pick you out if you have questions. So any hands up for questions? Obviously, Akobo, your answers were so good and so comprehensive that nobody. So for
Okay,
everyone, the
I
game.
have to go, gentlemen. I have to go have a meeting. I'm running late. Best of luck. Thank you for the call, guys.
Thanks to
Thank
everyone in
you.
the community that came. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Boris. Thanks, Bugs Beta. Thank you for the questions. And we'll catch up with you next time. Any other questions, just ping us on Discord.